Thank you so much for tuning in. This is On the Block with Bryce, and today's episode, it's a little bit of a special one. At least it's special to me. Today is September 5th, 2020, and that just so happens to be my 32nd birthday. Not a milestone year by any means, but it is always still fun to celebrate your birthday. I've always been real big on celebrating my birthday, and I'm glad to spend some of it with you here today. So again, thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. So in today's show, I would like to pose a question that I've heard literally no one else ask in regards to Antifa, Black Lives Matter, and the riots and protests in general. I want to ask it, and I also want to explain why I feel finding the answer is so important. So we'll do that. Then we'll dive in and take a look at some of the behaviors perpetrated by a few of our elected officials across the country over the last week. It has been absolutely disgusting in so many ways. We'll dive in, take a look at that. I'll break it down and give you my thoughts on what's going on, not only with our elected officials, but within the American political system as a whole, and why it's important to pay attention. Piggybacking off of that topic, we will take a look at the two-party voting system when it comes to our presidential election and other elections across the country as well. We alluded to it a bit in last week's episode, but today we're going to further break down why the two-party system needs to absolutely go and why different voices need to make their way to the main stage, why it's so important for us as a country, especially right now. We'll talk about that. And finally, we will round back to Antifa, BLM, and other groups like it, and I will give you my insight on why I think the leftist plan of letting them run loose in the city during this election year is not only detrimental to America and American society as a whole, but will also be their undoing potentially. We'll talk about that too. Okay, so I start with asking a very simple question. Black Lives Matter and Antifa, who is funding their cause? Who is funding these movements? It's a real simple question. It's a real basic question. It's a question that I think should be asked repeatedly until it gets an answer, and yet nobody from the media, whether it be left or right, no politicians, nobody is asking this question to anyone. There's been all this talk from right-wing media and right-leaning people to label Antifa as a terrorist group. Some even suggest labeling Black Lives Matter as a terrorist group. And yet, if we're going to talk about them as terrorists, which, by the way, most of them are, then why aren't we talking about their funding? What's the one thing you always talk about with terrorists? Where's their funding coming from? Where's their money coming from? And yet nobody's asking that here. Now, I know a lot of people who lean left will make the point that Antifa and the idea of them being a well-organized group with a hierarchical structure who get together and decide we're going to go here and we're going to do this, they say it's a myth. They say it's not real. They say that it's right-wing propaganda perpetuated by right-leaning media and the president himself. Okay, fine. Let's say that's the truth. Let's say that they are just a bunch of ragtags in each city who want to yell Antifa because it makes a good hashtag, and everybody's acting relatively independently from each other. So like the groups who do Antifa-like shit in Seattle are not in any way associated with, nor do they have contact with groups who claim Antifa in, say, Dallas or Baltimore. Let's say that's true. They're still well-funded. Have you seen some of the gear these fucking people wear? They have riot gear on. Do you know how much that stuff costs? You can look it up. It's not cheap. A riot helmet alone can go for, I'm looking at it right now, $175. With a full riot suit, $680. A riot shield, like the ones you're seeing a lot in the videos, they run for $175 as well. This stuff isn't cheap, so where are they getting the money to do this? I'm assuming most of them do not have jobs, either because of lockdown or because they're just lazy pieces of shit who want to burn down the system that's allowed them to riot and start fires. But let's just assume for a second they have day jobs and then they go out every night and do all this rioting and chaos causing. Still, the equipment's very, very expensive, and I doubt any of them have the type of jobs that would allow them to pay for that and also make rent, car payment, car insurance, phone bills, gas, food, if they got kids, diapers, toys, all that stuff. So again, who's funding this? Because it's not them. It's not them as individuals, even if they are just small factions running around. Who the hell is funding this? But let's even take all the expensive stuff away. Take out the shields, take out the riot gear. They're still throwing cans of soup at people. They're launching fireworks at people. Now, I know cans of soup and fireworks aren't as expensive as all the other stuff that we're talking about here, but still, they do have a price tag attached to them, and they seem to have enough of them that they can weaponize them enough to throw them at people at a on a daily and constant basis. So where's that money coming from? Now, maybe their day jobs can pay for cans of Campbell's Chunky, and maybe it can pay for a couple of fireworks, but I know a lot of fireworks, most of the fireworks that do what we've seen the fireworks in these videos do, they're not cheap either. If they are going to be the terrorist organization that people on the right want them to be, and that certain people in the center want them to be, we got to figure out who's funding them. Now, I have heard stories of it being George Soros and other big, rich, lefty media mogul types, but there's no evidence to suggest that. There's nothing that points to it other than there's a lot of people out there who don't like George Soros, and that's fine. He's a very unlikable figure in this country. I got no problem with that, but I haven't seen anything that points to him being involved in Antifa in any kind of way. Now, in contrast to Antifa, who may or may not be a well-organized group with a hierarchical structure, Black Lives Matter is a hierarchical group with an organized structure. Not only do they have leaders whom we know, they have a website, they have an agenda. You can go on the website, you can see it. They are also well-funded. Now, I'm not going to say that everyone who supports Black Lives Matter also supports rioting and looting, but what we do know is that there are people within Black Lives Matter, or who at least claim Black Lives Matter, who are in favor, if not take part in rioting and looting. That girl up in Chicago who was all like, yeah, if people want to riot and loot, that's reparations, so it's okay. So it's not beyond the scope of what they're about. So who's giving them money? Now, they might be a little easier to track as far as who's giving them money, but if they are really participating in these types of things, then why don't we take a closer look at who's giving them money? I'm really curious as to why I'm the only one asking this question. I don't have a lot of listeners. My voice is not going to go very far in this current time, but there are a lot of people out there who do reach a lot of people who haven't even asked the question, not once, on the left and the right. Now, if you're on the left, you may avoid the question for a couple of reasons. Number one, you support what they do, so you don't want to shed light on its negativity. Number two, you're covering for the people who back them because you know them and you like them because they share your particular political ideology. Or number three, the people who back them also back you, whether you be a politician giving funding or whether you be a news outlet, and that is potentially your boss if there's any truth to the George Soros thing at all. So you don't necessarily want that cat out of the bag either. Those are the only reasons I can think of why they want to be asking the question. Now, on the right, it's a little more curious because the right is the one labeling them as terrorists and big organized groups set on destroying America. And while Black Lives Matter, there is a little more credence to that. Nobody has definitively put the pieces together for Antifa as far as organization and hierarchical structure. And if you're on the right, you should really want to know this, and yet no one's asking. So the only reason I can really think of is you're afraid that Antifa might not be the big bad wolf you've portrayed them to be, and therefore your credibility and the agenda you want to push on the country and how they should think of these groups would fall apart. And that's a curious thing in itself, because who cares if they're organized or not? They're still running roughshod all over the country, burning things down and inciting riots everywhere they go. This includes Black Lives Matter, by the way. Now, again, not everybody who supports Black Lives Matter is in support of all the violent things that seem to be associated with Black Lives Matter lately. But still, you got to find out where this money's coming from, because if they are terrorist groups, you got to cut the head off the snake so the body withers and dies. Unless, of course, they're not, and this is all something you're just making up for views and clicks and likes and such, in which case we have a problem. We need to be asking, where's their money coming from? Okay, let's move on. The behavior of some of our political officials in this country has been absolutely atrocious, especially within the last week, and most of this is going to fall on the left, but it speaks to our political class in this country as a whole, which we will get to in a minute. No doubt by now you've heard the scandal, I call it a scandal, nobody else seems to be calling it a scandal, of Nancy Pelosi getting caught in a hair salon in San Francisco that was supposed to be closed thanks to San Francisco's lockdown. But she was in the salon anyway, getting her hair did. She wasn't wearing a mask. She was doing basically all the things that go counter to what she had been supporting. She's been for lockdowns. She's been for mandatory mask wearing. And yet there she is in a place that's supposed to be closed, receiving a service from that business while not wearing a mask. And it's not just the Speaker of the House either. Mayor Lori Lightfoot of Chicago recently got caught up using the police to protect her house because rioters and looters were coming her way. Now, this is very ironic considering she allowed rioters and looters to run roughshod through the city of Chicago. She disallowed police from intervening. She disallowed police from protecting the local business owners who are getting their businesses destroyed. We're not talking major businesses here. We're talking small, locally owned businesses, people who do not make a lot of money despite what all these leftist whack jobs think. She allowed those things to burn down and be looted and destroyed. A lot of those businesses, whom, by the way, will never come back. And while she was allowing that to happen, while she was putting her citizens in harm's way by allowing criminals to just run around doing God knows what, she used the police to protect her house. The very police that she called racist, the very police that she talked about defunding, she needed them to protect her. She was even asked about this hypocritical dichotomy by a member of the media, who I'm going to assume is left-leaning. And her response was simply, well, my house needs to be protected. My family should feel safe in their own home. Well, what the fuck about the rest of Chicago? How about them? Don't they deserve to feel safe in their homes too? They, of course, pay your fucking salary with their taxes. They're exuberantly high taxes, by the way. And it doesn't stop there. Mayor Ted Wheeler of Portland, Oregon, and Mayor of St. Louis, oh God, what's her fucking name? Lita Crewson. Both mayors have allowed their cities to basically be run right into the ground by rioters and looters. Both mayors have talked about defunding the police. Both mayors have called the police racist, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Both mayors have moved out of their homes to non-disclosed locations to get away from the rioters and looters that were coming for them. They have no problem allowing the cities to be absolutely destroyed. They have no problem with the safety of everyone else being compromised. But as soon as it comes to their front door, not only do they get police to surround them, no, that's not enough. They actually go further than Lori Lightfoot. They get the fuck out of Dodge. They just bail. And of course, we all remember the mayor of Seattle did the same thing a couple of weeks ago when rioters and looters came her way. She called the cops. Now, when people were calling the cops in Seattle about the Chaz Shop neighborhood that was going on, the cops weren't allowed to go in. The mayor said, no, we don't need the police here. It's not even a riot. It's just a party. Well, that party came to her front door and she decided she didn't want no part of it. How nice of you to consider yourself over all the residents of your cities. This behavior right here is a massive fucking problem. We're going to talk about it for a second. These elected officials are suffering something called elitism. The idea that they are so important, that their position is so superior, that they themselves have now become superior, that all the laws that they set, all the rules that they mandate don't actually apply to them because they are above it all. Only you, the small little people beneath them that they rule over, that they reign over, have to follow the rules. They are above the rules. This is why Nancy Pelosi doesn't have to wear a mask and she can go get her hair done. She can do this while she advocates for shutting down businesses indefinitely in California, San Francisco in particular, and while she forces everyone to comply with masks that again, the science isn't in on whether or not masks work, but she doesn't have to do it, you see, because she's Nancy Pelosi. Lightfoot and the other mayors, they can use the cops any way they want. They can leave the city. They can do whatever they want, but everybody else has to suffer with all these rioters and looters. And this is because these people think that they are above you. They think that their position is important and therefore that they are important. These motherfucking politicians have gone full Marie Antionette. Marie Antoinette was the last queen of France who and her husband, Louis XVI, were living very lavish lifestyles off the taxpayers' dime while the rest of the country was starving en masse. This was a very bad situation and it's what led to the French Revolution to begin with. These motherfuckers looked down their noses at the citizens of their country and thought, poor small people with their poor small problems. It ain't us. We're the king and queen. We don't have to fucking deal with it. Fuck them. Marie Antoinette is famously attached to the phrase, let them eat cake. And where that comes from is somebody reportedly had told her, hey, the citizens of this country have no bread. And she went, well, let them eat cake. Now, if we're being historically accurate, Marie Antoinette didn't actually say that. Somebody else said it, and it wasn't really let them eat cake. And it's, you know how history works sometimes. But the point is their behavior was very much so let them eat cake. They didn't give a fuck about all the citizens under their rule who were following the laws that they mandated, but then they were above, so they didn't have to follow them, and they got to live lavish lifestyles while everybody else starved to death and were overtaxed to death. This is exactly what we have going on in this country now. Pelosi and Schumer and people like all these mayors of the city, they think they're so important that they're just above everyone. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez gave a great example of this mindset just a couple of weeks ago when she was at a Senate thing or one of those fucking things on C-SPAN in which she was commiserating, going on and on about how another senator called her a fucking bitch. Now, maybe she was acting like a fucking bitch, maybe she wasn't, I don't know, that's not the point. The point is, when she was retelling this story, her attitude was this: he called me, an elected official, a congresswoman, a fucking bitch. As if the congresswoman title made her above such name-calling. This is how these people think. It's very, very evident this is how they think. Now, I'm not going to conglomerate every left-leaning politician or even every right-leaning politician and say they all think this way. I can't say that for sure. What I can say for sure is the mayors who are allowing all this fucking chaos to go on in their city streets, exposing the law-abiding citizens to all sorts of dangers while they allow criminals to run around doing whatever the fuck they want, these particular ones have that Marie Antionette mentality. If the people of those cities do not recognize that, they're fucked. Now, it doesn't get any better on the right. While their attitude isn't so nose up in the air down at people in such a blatant way, they do this. They do this by backing companies who fuck people over and all the big evil Republican stuff, but they do it in another way that's not so obvious that I want to share with you. You see, if the Democrats and the left were really as big of a threat to the Republic as Republicans are saying, which, by the way, I think they are, but I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about our elected officials, our esteemed elected officials who are supposed to do for us what we don't have time to do. They're supposed to represent us. What these Republican elected officials do is they spend their entire careers running around, pointing at all the dumb, horrible things Democrats do, and then do nothing about it. They just go, look at the shit they're doing. Vote for me because we can't let them do that shit. Of course, they still do that shit. Nancy Pelosi's been in office for 475,000 years. Nobody, not one Republican has done anything about all the dumb shit she does. The shit she just pulled, if a Republican had done that, if a Republican had said, we're going to implement this and that, and everyone needs to follow it, and then they got caught on tape not following it, it'd be a major fucking scandal. Democrats from all over the place would fucking inquiry and launch investigations and ask them to resign and all this, yet nobody is doing that with Pelosi. She's Speaker of the fucking House. She's third in line when it comes to the presidency. Like, that's a very powerful position. And yet, and still, even with all that, no inquiries, no demands for her to resign, no demands for an investigation into potential corruption. As Speaker of the House, it's kind of a big deal. You don't want them to be corrupt, and yet nobody is asking. Even in the face of Nancy Pelosi going after the business that released the tape. I mean, it's unbelievable how far up her ass she is with her own head. It's unbelievable how Marie Antoinette she has gone. She gets caught in a business, not wearing a mask, receiving a service from a business that isn't even supposed to be open, and then she tries to blame the business by saying, oh, well, they told me it was okay. It's like, yo, you're a representative of the city of San Francisco. You should know the lockdown laws. You should know the safety laws. By the way, she does. She's bullshitting. And then when that business owner goes on Fox News to retort and go, no. She's been coming in here since March. She constantly has come in here. She's always done this. She's never worn the mask. She sends a lawyer after the business. So in order to save face, even though the dirty laundry's already out, she's still willing to send a lawyer after this business owner to shut her down and potentially run her out of town. I mean, it's amazing, and yet still, from the Republicans, no investigation calls, no inquiries made, no demands for her to resign. Why is this? Every couple of years, we've heard the Republicans make this spiel. Democrats are dangerous, they're going to destroy the Republic, we must make sure that does not happen. Okay, well, you have the Speaker of the House, a very, very powerful position. You have them red-handed doing something very, very scandalous. Not only are they breaking their own quarantine rules or whatever, they're going after the business owner to save face so they don't look like a jackass. This is a huge scandalous thing, and yet, still, nothing. If there's such a danger to the Republic, if there's if they pose such a threat, which, by the way, I think they do, I just don't think the Republicans think they do very much. I think they like telling us that because it riles everyone up and gives them votes. Think about it. If Republicans really cared that much about the safety of America from this vicious left that is taking over, why not do something about it when you can? Why not dig up dirt the way the left does on them? I mean, Jesus fucking Christ, when Brett Kavanaugh went to be a Supreme Court justice, the left made up this whole dog and pony show about him being a fucking gang rapist or some bullshit. None of it was true. And yet they did it anyway. Now, again, Republicans say, well, we don't want to sink to that level. But if there's such a danger, no one's asking you to sink to that level. You don't have to sink to that level here to demand Nancy Pelosi resign this time. She was caught red-handed doing something scandalous. And yet, still, nothing. And it's because they're all in the same club. They're all in the same royalist, elitist club. And this back and forth to them, it's a game. It's a fucking game. That's why this is all a game to them. It is a dog and pony show that they put in front of you for the purpose of your vote. Every couple of years, they get out there, they point at the other guy, they tug on your emotional heartstrings at issues that you care deeply about, they blame the other guy for it, so you vote for them and keep them in power, keep their big cushy jobs with their big cushy salaries, while nothing gets done, and then every couple of years they come back and go, hey, I couldn't get it done because the other guy you don't like, so vote for me again and we'll get it this time. And they think you're stupid. Their elitist, royalist, let them eat cake mentality makes them think that they are above it all and that you are too stupid to know this. But you know what? I don't think you are too stupid to know this. I think people do know this, and I think people are starting to recognize it in a way where they're really starting to consider alternative options to these Democrats and Republicans. So what's the solution? You know, I'm a solution guy. I'm not just going to sit here and yell a bunch of problems at you. I have a solution. I'll be really quick because I ranted on that last point for a long time. The solution is get rid of the Democrats, get rid of the Republicans. It's as simple as that. Now, the game is rigged in their favor. There are so many things that they've done over the last century and a quarter to make sure that no other political parties have a voice in the big primary elections of the presidency or any other major Senate seat or House seat. Every once in a while, an independent will sneak through. Every once in a while, you'll get a libertarian to sneak through. But we need more voices in the political spectrum. We need way more because Republicans and Democrats, not only are they royalists and elitists who need to go, but their ideas are stupid. Now, everyone mistakes me for a right-leaning, like Republican conservative kind of guy. I'm really not. I'm just so anti-left that I talk shit on them a lot more. The truth is, I'm for whatever just sounds like a good idea at the time. The idea of Republicans and their values and the idea of Democrats and their values, they don't actually line up with anyone's actual values. I mean, honestly, think about it. What are they really about? I mean, with the left, you can't really ever fucking tell because they change with the wind. You know, whatever the loudest voice is about, that's what they're about. But with Republicans, what? Lower taxes here and there. Some of them believe in the sanctity of marriage. Some of them believe in, no abortions. But I mean, that's really it. They don't really stand for anything else. They're like that gang in that movie, Gangs from New York, that just stand on the crate and just damn England all day. That's what they do. Why are we electing these people? We need more voices. It's as simple as that. There is a libertarian candidate running for president right now named Jo Jorgensen. I guarantee you don't know anything about her. Why? Is because other parties who aren't Republican and Democrat, it has been rigged so that they don't have a voice. The Republicans and the Democrats have rigged it to where they are the only two parties who ever get to have a voice in not just the presidential seat, but all the other major seats throughout the House and the Senate. This is fucking bullshit. I know we're a representative republic, but we vote democratically for the most part. We vote for our elected officials who aren't president democratically, don't we? And yet, and still, we're always told if you vote for someone not Republican or not Democrat, you're throwing your vote away. Bullshit. Absolute bullshit. If you are voting with your conscience, you're not throwing your vote away. So if there is a candidate you like better than Donald Trump or Joe Biden, let's be real, Kamala Harris, you should vote for them. The time of this, the time for Republican Democrats, I mean, it ran its course a long time ago, 100 years ago. In fact, some of the founding fathers were very much against political parties because of this. When one starts to amass power, or when two start to amass power, everyone else falls to the wayside, and then you're left with just two parties. And you know what? Again, a two-party system is no choice at all. The Democrats need to go away. Republicans need to go away. They have done nothing for us. Name one good thing either side has done for us that hasn't been reversed by the other as soon as they take power. It's just this giant pendulum swing of constant just fucking influx and change. You can't ever get your footing in this country because somebody's cutting your taxes and they're raising your taxes. These tax cuts help you, and then these guys over here hurt you. But then these guys put in a system that's okay, and then these guys undo it because it hurts their business partners. And this pendulum swing is by design. Republicans get the turn at power for a while, then Democrats get the turn at power for a while. They each talk some shit, they sling some mud, and that's just how they do. Remember, these are a part of the same elitist cult that we have in this country that call themselves elected officials. There's not much difference between them. They just keep trading off who gets to sit in charge for a while to make it look like democracy is actually taking place. These people may see themselves as royalty, but they're not. They work for you. They work for us. Our tax dollars pay them. They represent us, what we want. So we might as well demand better than what we've been getting. All right, final point. We are going to run a little longer than I wanted, but that's okay. I wanted to make this point. I got really heated up here. When I start talking about like elitist politicians, I get really heated up. But like I said, the more we do, the more things will change, and it will be better for us to change them democratically than changing them the way that they might change in the future if we don't. Because, well, the normal average person isn't doing much to push for change outside of, moving their money over here or voting for this guy instead of that guy. There are radicals out there right now literally burning things to the ground to incite change. And it's usually the most extreme actions that get the first and most immediate and long-lasting responses. Not always for the better. Antifa, Black Lives Matter, they're ridiculous groups. I don't think I need to harp on that anymore. I think my position on them is quite clear. But I don't think people realize just how dangerous they are. And most importantly, I don't think the elitist politicians who let them run roughshod realize how dangerous they are. You see, I've heard a lot of people in conservative radios say that the people out there for Black Lives Matter and Antifa and anyone in between, just people who are anarchists, neo-Marxists, who are out there just causing destruction for the sake of it because they hate America. The right seems to think that these people are going to vote for Joe Biden. And I think that Biden and Harris seem to think that they can capture these votes. Here's the reality, though. And it's a reality that I think Biden and Harris, and it would do everyone good to learn. These people aren't going to vote for Joe Biden. In fact, they hate Joe Biden. They hate Kamala Harris. They hate them as much as they hate Donald Trump. The only one they really seemed to have liked was Bernie Sanders, but guess what? A lot of them don't even like him. Now, why is this? They're for all the things they're for. They sit there and burn a city down because they believe in systemic racism, and then Biden gets up there and says systemic racism is a real problem. Why don't they like him? Ted Wheeler let these guys run roughshod through the city, and they came right to his front door and launched fireworks at it. Lori Lightfoot held back the cops, and they came to her front door. Same thing with the mayor of St. Louis. Same thing with the mayor of Seattle. Why is this? Why is it that the elected officials who are giving these terrorists, these anarchists, these supposed anti-fascist, Black Lives Matter, Marxists, everything they want, and yet they still come for them? It's not because they're white. That would be too easy. No, the darker truth is because they are a part of the system all the same. It doesn't matter if they say they're on your side. They are not on their side enough. These radical anarchists, these Marxist revolutionists, these neo-socialists, they want to destroy the system entirely. They want to bring down the system of America to its knees, crumble it, get rid of it completely, and then take it over in their own vision. And Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are not only members of, but benefactors of that system. That's how they look at these people, and that's why they come after them. It doesn't matter what you do for them. It doesn't matter what you give them. They view you as the enemy. And so they will not stop. It doesn't matter how progressive a mayor or a governor gets. They will come for you. This is what radical revolutionist types do. They never befriend the old guard. They eliminate the old guard. A couple episodes back, we talked about 1984 and how much of what we're seeing now reflects what's going on in 1984. Well, this specific instance of all these mayors getting rioters showing up to the door and having fireworks launched at them and then fleeing in the middle of the night out of fear for their lives, this is very much something that we've seen before throughout history that the book 1984 covers very well. In the book 1984, there are three characters, Aronson, Jones, and Rutherford, and who they are were the first generation of revolutionaries. They were the first generation of people to stand up against the system to try to bring it down. They were the fictitious counterparts to Biden and Harris and Pelosi. And what ended up happening was the radical people that they encouraged, the radical people that they thought they had a hold over, took them over. They arrested them, they imprisoned them, they tortured them, they made propaganda about them saying that they were enemies of the party, because that's what the bad guys in 1984 are called, that the organization, the political party is called the party. And they locked them up. It was a very, very miserable existence for them. And that's what happens. That's what happens in all types of left-leaning revolutions. And the reason this is because leftists see things as positions of power. Everything is ultimate power to these people. And so if they're not the ones wielding the power, then they must eliminate whoever is, because in their minds, that's what the other person's going to do to them. And so if they're not sitting in the highest seat, they must take out whoever is sitting in the highest seat so they could sit in that highest seat. And then it perpetuates from there. Somebody will take them out because one day they will no longer be seen as radical enough, and so on and so forth. By Biden backing these ideologies, by saying, yes, America's this terrible, evil place, by buying into revisionist history like the 1619 Project, the way the New York Times is and everything, they think they're either saving themselves or that they somehow can control this new neo-Marxist radical rage that has been unleashed on the country. They think they have control over it. They don't. That's the arrogance of elitist politicians, by the way. If these politicians think they can control what they've unleashed, they are seriously wrong. They are not tools in your bag. They are heat-seeking missiles coming right at you. And they will, no matter what you do. So that's my advice to Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, and everybody on the left who have unleashed these people, because it's not me they're going to come after first. It's them. Anyway, I know we ran a little long, but I do appreciate you taking the time to listen. That's all I got for you today. I'm going to enjoy my birthday now, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Have a good Labor Day weekend, and we'll catch you next time. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe to stay up to date on all our future episodes, and share with your friends so they can enjoy it as well. And if you enjoyed today's background music, their links can be found in the description below. On the Block with Bryce was recorded at Beer and Bourbon Studios, Maricopa County, Arizona, and is a product of Jerk Cat Entertainment.